He's going to come up now. Big hand for John Carpay. He's been defending our rights. He's been helping the people that have tickets, and he knows the law on our constitutional side. So big hand for John Carpay.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks all of you good, patriotic Canadians. Not only are you braving the cold, but you're braving the risk of these $1,200 tickets. It takes courage. Nobody wants to get a ticket, but if that's what it takes to defend the charter, then that's what we got to do. So I've got some good news to report. The last time that I spoke here, we had just filed a statement of claim against the Alberta government to end the lockdowns. And eventually we'd be suing some other provinces. So since I was here December the 5th, we have now sued the governments of Manitoba and British Columbia. We're working on the court action against the governments of Saskatchewan and Ontario. I really appreciate all the support from all the people. I know there's many Justice Centre supporters here in the crowd today. And the only reason we're able to do this is because we've got grassroots Canadians that are giving us the donations that make it possible for us to have the legal team that we have. jccf.ca. And in 2020, our organization grew. We got 2,000 more supporters on board that are donating. And these are people coming in at all levels, because if you think that $25 doesn't help, you're wrong. There's lots and lots of people all across Canada that give us $100 a year, $25 a year, $500 a year. It doesn't matter. It all adds up. Yeah. And so we've hired our 8th lawyer. Every time we get more money, we hire more lawyers to take on more court cases. And our 8th lawyer actually has go to our website. Her name is Saya Hassan, and she is working from Toronto. And she's got a criminal law background. She was a criminal defense lawyer for most of her legal career. And it's exactly what we need right now, because we're taking on all these cases of people that are getting the $1,200 tickets or $1,000 tickets, whatever, in all the provinces. So we're going to keep on trying to represent as many people as possible. And we're going into court and we're saying that the supreme law of the land is the charter, not the lockdowns. Now, you never know ahead of time. I don't know if we're going to win these court actions or not. I've always said anybody who predicts the outcome of a court case is a fool. You never know ahead of time. But even if we lose these court cases, something very good is going to happen, is that the government, for the first time, is going to have to answer some questions. Jason Kenney and Dina Hinshaw cannot walk into court with a soundbite or speaking points from a news conference. They're going to have to answer some questions. We have got top-notch medical experts that are filing reports, and I've got a near final copy of one of our expert reports that's going to get filed in Manitoba pretty soon, and we'll be filing these reports in all the provinces. So here's a sneak preview, and I hope Dina Hinshaw and Jason Kenney are listening, because you're going to have to answer these questions. From an expert medical report, the PCR tests are not reliable. The best evidence on infection fatality rate comes from seroprevalence studies. What is Dina Hinshaw going to say about that? What is Dina Hinshaw going to say about the 99.77% survival rate amongst people who are infected, when she's been trying to dramatize this as some unusually deadly killer, when Alberta Health Services data itself tells us that it's not. What's Dina Hinshaw going to say when it's pointed out to her by medical experts that the mortality is low for 90% of the population, and that it's a threat to people that are already dying of things like cancer and heart disease and emphysema and other causes? Something else you're going to have to answer. According to Statistics Canada, about tabulating COVID deaths. When a pre-existing condition is suspected of putting a person at higher risk of a severe course of COVID-19 resulting in death, the death is counted as a death due to COVID-19 rather than a death due to the pre-existing condition. This is from a government document. It gets more interesting. It is also possible that the death may have been influenced by COVID-19 but caused by another disease or an unintentional injury event. In these situations, COVID-19 should still be recorded on the medical certificates as cause of death. It'll be interesting to see what Dina Hinshaw has to say about the recording of deaths from COVID. Asymptomatic spread of COVID is rare, say top medical experts. See, right now, I mean, the media are not going to ask her any of these questions. I mean, if she says that, you know, we need to wear masks because asymptomatic people, that we're all spreading it to each other, media is not asking her questions about that, but she'll have to answer that in the context of the court action. Clear implication of this scientific fact is that many intrusive lockdown policies, including church and business capacity limitations and closures, could be replaced with less intrusive symptom checking requirements with little or no detriment to infection control outcomes. There is a better way than the lockdowns. This report is 41 pages, and it's only one of our reports. But Dina Hinshaw is going to have to answer about the principles of good the principles that govern good health policy. It's an ethical principle that governments must consider both the costs and benefits of the alternative policies, choosing policies that appropriately balance the two. This happens to be identical to what the Charter requires. The Charter requires of governments that whenever they pass a law or a policy or issue a health order, anytime there's a government law or policy that violates our rights and freedoms, and you know, we all know, Jason Kenney knows that the restrictions on our freedoms to move and travel and associate and assemble and worship and have Christmas dinner with our family, that these are violations of our charter freedoms. They know that. The charter requires that they carefully consider the benefits and the harms of all of their laws. They're not doing that. How do we know? Because hundreds of hours of research time have uncovered nothing in terms of the Alberta government taking a hard, serious look at lockdown harms. They're simply blithely continuing on, pretending that somehow the lockdown harms must be smaller than these wonderful benefits. And these benefits too, they're going to have to prove that in court, that there's actually benefits. They can't just assert it at a news conference.
The cure is worse than the disease.
The cure is worse than the disease. That's our legal argument in a nutshell. That's our legal argument in a nutshell. Are lockdowns even necessary?
No.
Well, this is they're going to have to answer for that in court. One of our experts says that society-wide lockdowns are not a tool of disease eradication, and in fact have never in history eradicated a disease. This too is something they're going to have to answer for. Throughout history, there's been, at least for the last 2,000 or 3,000 years, there's been the quarantining of the sick. and that is an accepted, established medical practice. When people are sick, you quarantine the sick. And even with COVID, symptomatic people can spread it, but asymptomatic people, there's very little spread. To lock down an entire population is a brand new political experiment, and it's never been successfully tried in history with good outcomes.
I want a lockdown in Mexico.
There is no existing randomized study, which is the gold standard study type in clinical therapeutics and public health interventions. There's no existing randomized study that has evaluated the efficacy or costs of these measures. If one were to view these lockdowns and activity restrictions as a medical intervention, it would be unethical to implement them in the absence of randomized evidence in support of their efficacy. So we have a world-renowned doctor saying that the lockdowns are medically unethical. And the government lawyers are welcome to cross-examine him. They will be cross-examining him, and I think he'll do just fine. Dina Hinshaw will also be cross-examined about the harms that her policies have inflicted. All of the suicides, all of the deaths from canceled surgery, all of the deaths from increased unemployment, increased suicide because of increased unemployment. The harms of the lockdown, the government will be held to account in court on the harms of the lockdown. So there's good news. It's because of the people. The people support the Justice Centre. The Justice Centre has a team of lawyers. The team of lawyers is suing 3 and soon to be 4 and then 5 provincial governments. I really appreciate your support. I admire and respect your courage in coming out here. To brave the cold, to brave the risk of these potential threat of fines that I know people people here today have received fines and are getting representation from the Justice Centre. So keep up the courage, because courage is what we need in dark times. These are dark times. These lockdown measures are not temporary. They are permanent. There's a lot of people want to keep them as permanent. They want to make them worse than what they already are. And so the only thing to do is to fight back, and to fight back peacefully, as Brad said, and to keep on getting the word out, and to keep on coming back, because at the end of the day, we know that quitters never win, and winners never quit. And it's worth the sacrifice, it's worth the hardship, no matter what happens, because remember, it is better to die standing than to live on your knees. Thank you.